Okay. Hi, everybody. This is our inaugural podcast, The Method to Our Madness. Welcome, welcome. I'm Stacy Marola, and my co-host is Bill Pate. I guess we'll just start off giving a little bit of introductions to our background. Yeah, do you want me to go first, Bill, or should you go
Yeah,
first?
sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. Again, my name is Stacy Marola. I have a PhD in sociology from Cornell University. I've been working in the evaluation space. Ooh, over 20 years. I've led mixed methods evaluations, done quite a few evaluations in the education space, but also I've done stuff in cybersecurity and done stuff with voting. Also stuff in criminal justice as well, a few things. Yeah, it's been a pretty diverse career. And I guess I mixed methods researcher, but I'm sort of quantitative leaning, I guess, is I do both quantitative and quantitative. So I don't know, Bill, introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So, William Pate or Bill Pate. I've been doing evaluation technically since 2001. So, I guess we're getting up on 24, 25 years here. I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology. Before that, a bachelor's in, well, I guess it was psychology, but I did a lot of experimental psych lab work at the university. And so my evaluation work, like Stacy, mostly quantitative, primarily quantitative. So it'll be fun when we talk about statistics and where our skill sets overlap and everything. Let's see. Besides that, yeah, federally funded stuff, Department of Education. There were a couple of smaller federal things that didn't have to do with evaluation necessarily. It was more like applied research. But yeah, mostly quantitative stuff. And not so much education, but I guess education research. I don't do the hierarchical linear modeling like Stacy does. I just do the straight, I guess, traditional statistics. I'm not sure if that's a thing or not, like t-tests and things like that, chi-squares. But also, oh, one other thing that I do specialize in a little bit is non-parametric statistics. So doing stats for like much smaller data sets, and that's been useful. Okay.
So we met like 2009 or 10, right? Like it's been over 15 years, I think, right? When I was,
That makes sense.
uh,
And we met, so you knew Francis met you, I believe, first.
yeah, Frances is Bill's wife. We worked together at ICF a long time ago. Yeah, so I met Frances and then Bill. So yeah, and we had both been independent contractors for a while, and then I got another job. But now I'm back in the independent world. So yeah, so we decided to start this podcast, which I've been wanting to do for I don't know, like 5 years or something. So I'm very excited that I get to do this now. Yeah, I don't know. Bill, how did you come to podcasting?
How did I come to podcasting? I almost came to podcasting during COVID. A colleague of mine and I were talking about doing it. We were developing a line of work that was more systems related. So systems and evaluation, systems thinking in other domains. And we had done a book chapter, we had done workshops. We were thinking about taking it on the road. And then one idea that came up was doing a podcast. But I think we were overthinking it. And rather than just kind of like moving forward with it, we got caught up in the minutia and the details and just kept putting it off. So I'm glad we're doing this way.
Yeah, I'm very excited. All right, I guess we could talk a little bit about what evaluation is. So, and what evaluation isn't, I guess. Evaluation is applied research. We're not you don't tend to go out like in traditional research and that you might have gotten your PhD training or other training in, where you're looking through a bunch of literature and you're like, oh, these folks in this article missed this variable. We really need to do a study with this variable. And hey, all right, now we're gonna, do this study. That's that's not evaluation. Evaluation, though it does have a theory base when you create a logic model and theory of change, which we'll hopefully talk about in one of these podcasts. It's not, it's driven by stakeholder needs and the program itself versus, though you can write papers about it, it's not driven by the researchers' independent sort of theorizing or it's very applied. Would you say that's pretty accurate, Bill?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, so definitely applied. And I like your point about how because it's applied, a lot of times it develops along with the project. So I've been in so many situations where there's like a kickoff meeting, and it's like before the kickoff meeting, it's like, well, we took a look at what you sent us, or what was in the RFP, and if we were and using just that information, this is how we would do the evaluation. So the stakeholder engagement, like you said, if there's any existing data, accessing that, doing some interviews and some stuff and other stuff to get a really good picture of what was done and how what ended up being done was different than what they originally planned, usually in order to get the funding that they did get. And so then it's just kind of okay, so this is what they intended to do. This is what they actually did. Here's the difference. Here's our understanding as to why. And here's our assessment of like how well they met their goals. And then there's always a spot for like next steps or what we would recommend to be done the next time around.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of this analogy I like to use sometimes where like I think of sort of a professor doing traditional academic research is more like a chef in his or her own restaurant. Like you come in there and you get sort of what the chef decides to order, decides to serve you that day. And they tell you what you're going to pair your wine with. And, but, us as evaluators, we tend to be more like a caterer or something. We have a range of dishes we tend to serve, but we build the menu interactively with the client, so it's to create the best experience possible. So
Oh, I like that. I've never heard that one. That's cool.
that I came up with that myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so yes, that's kind of what we do. And I guess my hope for this podcast is that we'll be explaining methods within evaluation research, but and I'm hoping there'll be an opportunity for people to ask questions as we go along. I was thinking about what's going on in society today, with a lot of applied researchers, it's sort of being laid off and this means that a lot of organizations are losing their institutional knowledge. And so hopefully this will be a place where folks that are earlier in their careers can come and learn. And then, at some point, maybe we'll have a chance to share ideas as well. They can ask questions and we can discuss. So, and then we'll talk to other people who are experts in the field and, kind of give back in that way. All right. So I guess we can talk a little bit about like how we came to be evaluators, because it's not like, you wake up one day when you're 5 and you're like, oh, I want to be an evaluator when I grow up. So for me, I was working on my PhD in sociology and I decided I did not want to go into academics for a variety of reasons. And then luckily, Cornell had a very good evaluation program. And I started taking some classes over there with Bill Trochim, very famous evaluator. And I really enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, the applied world is for me. And then at the time, if you wanted to be a sociologist, an applied sociologist, there were basically three places you could go to. You either had to go to like Chicago, New York, or Washington, D.C. And, I had been cold in Ithaca for 10 years. So I came to DC. And yeah, my first job was with the American Sociological Association. And we were researching membership, you know, tracks of people, the career paths of people who had gotten PhDs in sociology. We had a cohort, I think, from 96, 97 that we were tracking, and we were looking at trends within the membership as well. But then afterwards, I got my first job at the American Institutes for Research, and that's when I officially became sort of a educational researcher, evaluator slash evaluator. And one of my first projects was the WhatWorks Clearinghouse, which, we were on the first contract. And so we helped develop the standards for the WhatWorks Clearinghouse. And we did a lot of coding of studies. And it was great because it was sort of like I got a lot of training and in like what is good research design by helping to create the standards and reviewing so much of the research that had been done in math. I was on the middle school math interventions and elementary school math interventions. And so, yeah, and I've been able to use that knowledge throughout the rest of my career. So, yeah, so these things, your early lessons, you can take with you as you go along. So, but, part of the reason I didn't want to go into academics was I wanted to really make, research relevant for people, like use research to help better society. And evaluation has allowed me to do that. So, there have been agencies that have used our research to justify getting more grant dollars for schools. And so it definitely makes an impact. So anyway, how about you, Bill? How did you come to be an evaluator? Or did you
Well,
always want to be
actually,
one since you were five?
six actually, but
Six.
so no, actually, I was when you were talking about that. So you went from AIR to ICF.
I went from AIR to Windwalker, which I'm not sure they're still in business. I know they got sold to another company or something. Yeah, to a small business called Windwalker. And then I went to ICF.
And then you went to ICF. Who did you work with at Windwalker? Do you remember?
Howard. I still have good friends who were like my coworkers from there, but I think my boss was Howard. I can't remember what his name was. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
No, totally fine. Because we actually did some work with Windwalker a while back, so I was trying to figure out the overlap. That's interesting.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. So let's see. When I started doing evaluation, I was at the American Psychological Association. I was working in the Center for Workforce Studies. It used to be the research office, but it became the Center for Workforce Studies, and it was an office that was tasked with getting a sense of the demography of the field of psychology. So it sounds like it was very similar in some ways to what you were doing at ASA.
Yeah, it does actually. I guess
Yeah,
all
and
these
so
membership organizations probably have similar needs.
exactly. So yeah, so we had our own in-house data where we collected information directly from departments of psychology, but then we also used a subset of the NSF data on those who received, in particular, doctorates in psychology, PhDs in psychology. And so we use that information as well. And then individual surveys of members. Because I think at the time when I started there in 2000, something like 60% of psychologists belonged to the American Psychological Association. So it was a decent number, but it wasn't great. It seems like it should have been a lot higher, but that was another thing that, they wanted to understand about their own membership. And so there was some demography in there. But so I started doing that. And while we were there, the Minority Fellowship Program for APA was down the hall, and they were instructed by NIH to get an external evaluator. And so they walked down the hall and they asked my boss, Jessica, if she would be interested in doing this external evaluation for their NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health, funded training program to increase diversity in neuroscience careers. And so she's like, yeah, sure, we could probably do that. And so I've been there, I think, like 3 months. And she's like, Bill, would you like to take a stab, writing up something? And so I just come from experimental psych. And it's like, oh, well, it's not an experiment, but if I wanted to assess this, I would look at it in this way. Because there are individuals who got the fellowship and went to the summer program. There were those who did one but not the other. And then at some later point, we ended up getting a different cohort where it was neither, but it was through some other application mechanism. And so it set up kind of a pseudo comparison. And so we wrote it up, submitted it, and I got funded the next year. So in 2001, we got the funding and just like, okay, you can do this now. And the summer program at that point was, I think, mid-June to mid-July every summer at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. And so the first year I went up for like a long weekend. And then I got the lay of the land, and it's like, oh, I could do so much more if I was here every day for the summer program. So then the next year I went up and I was embedded with the students in lectures, labs, and everything that they did for like 4 weeks straight.
Oh,
It was a lot of fun. Took a lot of notes, got to know a lot of people. I got to know the staff there, the program people. I got to talk to the PIs repeatedly, over like dinner or like wine at night or whatever. And so it gave me this, it was a unique opportunity to really see this project and this program up close. And then I think because of that, and I established relationships with a lot of individuals in that cohort in particular, and we still keep in contact. Well, LinkedIn makes it easier, but whenever I see them at like a Society for Neuroscience meeting, it's like seeing an old friend. So it was this really crazy like experience, and it was a relatively small project, but it kept going for a long time. And I think I only recently started not working with them. They partnered with the University of Chicago. There's, of course, been a lot of turnover. The original PIs that started the project, they started in the late 80s. And I
oh wow.
think during COVID, they both died. They were like in their 80s. And
Oh, okay.
yeah. And then I got to know other people who took over from them. But it was never quite the same, but it's still a really great program. And I think the last time I worked with them was like 2 years ago. So that was a really weird introduction to evaluation. And it was a strange beast in that it was a small project that was always in the background. And so I left APA in 2011, and they were okay with me taking this project with me because anything less than $1 million in billables was too small for them to be bothered with. So I
Wow. Okay.
I took it with me, and that really helped out when my wife Frances and I both went independent around that time. 2010 is when we started Ad Hoc Analytics, and then 2011 we both were in it full time.
Cool. Okay. Thanks. We talk a little bit about goals for the podcast going forward.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think our goals for the podcast. I mean, I know I'm hoping to use this as a way for myself to learn new things, but also to provide education for folks in the field. Like I said earlier, with some of the a lot of the layoffs and closing of various evaluation organizations in this current environment, there is like a loss of that institutional knowledge. I know right before I was sort of rift, some of the junior staff were worried, about who were they going to learn from. So hopefully this podcast could be a way of a place where people can learn. And, so I guess, I think in my head, I had that, we'll be, discussing topics some weeks, but hopefully as it gets bigger, we can have people ask questions, maybe have people on to ask their questions and talk with us. I'd also love to do some interviews with folks in the field. We're doing really interesting things. So we'll also so make it more, a little bit interactive, not just Bill and I all the time.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, and I can imagine us, it seems like we can do this in a structured way moving forward. And then at some point, we're going to be bringing in other ideas or other things will emerge in this journey that we have. And then that will, give us opportunities to pivot, reconsider, or, come back to different things or come back to things in a different way. But yeah, I really like this idea of like talking to people who have questions about evaluation or who are already established or who do, weird instances of evaluation or really exciting instances of evaluation. We both belong to a number of professional organizations. We could even talk about them and, why we belong and why somebody might want to consider being a part of that. I know that we get newsletters from our different professional organizations, and,
Right.
that may generate some ideas or topics or things that we can talk about. So yeah, I kind of like how this is going to be pretty open-ended but useful for somebody who's interested in getting into evaluation.
Yeah, totally.
I'm excited.
I am too. I'm excited to see where we end up. It's about the journey, not always about the destination. So,
Yep, absolutely.
so I guess so. That's it. I guess. I don't know. We should
Yeah, I
pause.
mean, I think this is a pretty good start. We
Okay.
we did a thing, and we'll edit the thing and post
Yeah.
it and figure out how we can find listeners.
Yeah. That was great. So I guess we should say thanks for, listening to our inaugural podcast and thanks for coming along on the journey. So
Agreed.